Baba knows the way. For Joseph Baba Ifa, Baba knows the way. We follow the signs. He walks with the Orisha through sacred lines. He speaks with the ancients. He honors the drum. He carries the wisdom where we all come from.
Where you from, sir?
I am from Tampa, Florida, born and raised. But my father's side is from Guyana, Brazil. My father came to this country at the age of 6 years old, fresh off the boat with a passport with his mom and dad, who my grandfather was a engineer on the ships. He worked on the shrimp boats coming to America and back and from Guyana, and that's how he made the money to support and bring my grandmother and his child here.
Real gentleman, man. You know, he went back. You know, it's rare, you know, back then, but, you know, thank heavens, this is why we're here now. As far as mom's side of the family, where are they from, possibly?
Mom's side of the family is African American and Cuban.
Okay.
My great grandmother was a slave. She worked as a maid for most of her life and everything, and a Cuban German bought her freedom. And once he did that, he married her. They settled down, and he passed away early, but she lived on to be a good 80, 90 years old. So that woman taught me a lot, not only in the Spiritismo, but just in our roots and those things. She was a maid who scrubbed and cleaned till she had no fingerprints, literally. So just those roots, as you say, our roots, is very big with me.
No, really rustic beginnings. I just want to put a side note. I love Tampa people. I love Tampa. I'm not sure if anybody knows I like a good cigar, and Tampa is the capital. So if you ever see me over there, just say hi. But really rich ethnic, spiritual background. You know, when you say grandma was a slave, was she a slave in Cuba or here?
She was a slave here.
Oh, my gosh. So when we talk about places like Guyana, places like Cuba, you know, I mean, with the Guyanese aspect of your spiritual background, what can you let us know? Like, because I've initiated Guyanese people. I've heard of the Amerindians. I've heard of. Could you kind of elaborate on that a little bit for people who might not know?
Guyanese has a very diverse culture and people. Our motto is one land, one nation, one destiny. And that's true for our people. There is a lot of mixes of people, different ethnic groups, just due to the slave trade and the things that happened in Guyana. And spiritually, like how other places would say, oh, you know, the biggest thing that you would see is Hindu practice, Christianity, Muslim faiths in Guyana. But the undertones in that, just like we see with other places, is that other is Komfa, is spirituality, is Obeah, because you see the lineages, these practices of our forms of a spiritismo that helped liberate these people through the oppressions, through those times where Cuffy and everything had the rebellion and it was a failed rebellion, but it was those moments that started for revolution and peace for the people, for the enslaved in Guyana, where Dutch cell workers came in, Portuguese, Romani people, East Indian people, Chinese people, African people were all in just this one space trying to exist with the already indigenous people.
That's really incredible. I mean, when you talk about Guyana, unless you've actually interacted with the great people from there, like half of my family's from Queens, so big Guyanese population. I benefited from all the amazing food and all the pounds that came with it, with all the roti.
We love pepper pot.
Oh, yeah. But, you know, it wasn't until I started delving more into those friendships and listening to elders and their families, you know, especially the matriarchs and stuff like that.
Definitely.
Just realizing how spiritually enriched, because you do have the Hindu overtones, you do have all these other things. But I'll be frank with you, with Obeah, there's this, I think, big misunderstanding, at least for someone such as myself from the outside looking in, where, you know, a lot of people think of like Jamaica and they think voodoo, but in reality, voodoo is actually much more associated with like a Haiti. And then you realize that Obeah is actually quite present over there. And now understanding with you, in Guyana as well. I mean, to be frank with you, myself, the only interactions I've had with Obeah, I remember there was a movie that Brad Pitt did.
Yes.
And bro, I'll never forget, I looked at that scene and I was so spooked because he had that lady in the wheelchair and she was like, oh my God, the Obeah man.
You come for Obeah B?
I was like, man, Brad killed that, but you begin to realize the impact. So, I mean, What is Obeah, brother?
And how I explain to everybody, just like how in Latin America and anybody can say brujeria. We don't know if we're talking about Palo, we don't know if we're talking about Santeria, we don't know if we're talking about 21 divisions. The same can be said for Obeah. But in the terms of where it is heavily in Trinidad, Suriname, the Bahamas, and Guyana, in that case, it stems from the Akan, the Igbo, and the Bantu people, where Obeah or Obi in the Igbo language is a medicine used in Afa to take away those ailments. Like how we see as Oceanistas and everything that make those charms, everything, those packs with Osain, they would be called Odi, Odianista, Odi Onia. They would be called those terms, and those are people who work specifically with that energy, with that crowd to make charms for sickness, for this, for that, to heal people. In the Akan culture, right, Obiafo, or Obiaye is Obiafo is of someone to work with the witchcraft, who works with the unseen. Obiye means the work that is unseen, the spirits, the natures. So when we look and dive into that aspect of what Obeah is in Trinidad, in Guyana, in that context, is the workings of making those pacts with those spirits. Anybody can say, oh, this, that, but across nations, either in Trinidad, even in Jamaica, even in Guyana, even in Bahamas, if you ask what Masakura is, they're gonna be like, oh, the spirit that be on the water that snatch people down. If you ask about Sukoyan, they're gonna say the energy that's like a bright light that everybody knows about these terminologies. Even when you go back to present day Ghana, and I ask, elders about these things about Sasa Bonsam, the energy that's kind of like the Punisher, kind of like Ogun. This is just like, oh, you're doing bad. You're not following with attention. You're not listening to your cry. You're not serving the other people. We're going to put it into that. Kind of the energy of that Zangbeto, that guardian of the night energy that will take care of those things when others may not.
I had no idea it was that in depth, and then to see the influences, back to real cultures, whether it be Ghana and all these other ones. It's interesting you mentioned Sambeto, because that's actually a path of Eshu within Ifa, who has to do with the night and things like that. If I recall, it's in the Odio Salafobeo. But I've actually seen him before, and sometimes he'll have a lantern and things like that. So that's wild that there's that syncretism even there.
Exactly.
So in Obeah, it sounds like it's very spiritually influenced, right? Now, would these energies be on par with or correlated to like an Orisha, or are they much more spiritual, like a more Palo concept?
I would say more Palo concept. And these things,
especially with the Bantu influences.
Exactly. Very lineageal, very clan things, very dealing with your ancestors and your roots and the packs, like how in Palo you have that canasta that make that full foundation. It's similar to those things to induct an altar or something for your spiritual nana safamo, your ancestors, or your saman twin, your elevated ancestors, is similar to how we would say in Orisha, like feeding the whole. Okay. But it is more that goes into it. Similar to like the Kargas and everything that the Babalaos work with. We're talking about dealing with heavy things. We're not just going to throw a gold or a duck and everything. There's gold. There's other things that go and get put in secrets and powders to make that foundation. So once we cover this hole and we say those libations and we do those things, that your Nasa Famo can erect themselves. Similar to with the Zangbeto and those energies that we see, there are things that are packed and buried. Those dolls, those icons get buried, and it's able to move and do those things because it's been living with that energy of the Aye or of the earth, how we call.
Yeah, no, definitely. And those concepts, I mean, when you look at the Gaga concept, specifically within Lukumi Ifa, it has heavy influences from like Benin and places like that. So you kind of see these concepts across Africa where you even look at a Palo concept of like the Ganga, right? The Ganga originally was actually a gentleman. Ganga was actually their prophet, their messiah, however you want to term it. And when he passed away, where they buried him, they called it a Ganga, right? Now, with time and with mobility, we start moving and we don't want to leave these things behind. It ended up being in a pot made out of clay rather than being actually in a dirt that was red clay. So hearing the concepts that you're expressing now, it's at the end of the day, it's the same thing. It's spiritual worship being facilitated by Mother Earth, right? And then you hear the connotations and similarities with like Osang and the tribes that influenced it. The people or the priests that you mentioned, it correlates just in the same right to Orisha and Ifa. You have someone that specializes in the charms and amulets. You have somebody who might do, like you said, the seen or unseen work. Is there an initiatory process?
With Obeah, there is a process where one does get washed or initiated, but that is led by Obeah, Obeah man, Obeah woman, or Obi, a Wanga person, as we say, a Wanga man, Wanga woman. But this is led by that person and given in guidance. It's known that we already, just like how we say with Congo spirits and everything in the Spiritismo, you can have that spirit with you, you can have that energy, but do you need to receive the foundations of that energy to really work with it? So there are things that can be guided with you and everything from a standpoint in Obeah, but it's if you need those things. Because you can have a bosom that walks with you to fulfill your cry, but do you need to take those things and unnecessarily dive into those things? Are there things that you need to do to liven that? Or do you just need a representation?
An icon, yeah. Now, you mentioned this phrase, cra. I saw, and for anybody that's not in the membership program, sign up immediately so you can see this gentleman responding in the live. But what is this concept of cry? I remember you had mentioned it was possibly from Ghana,
yes,
and whatnot.
The concept of cry you see mentioned in the practice of konfa, which in konfa and everything in Guyana they say like it's to catch spirit or to do this, and that's how we describe it. But in the Ghanaian terms, the original term akonfa is the dance meant to invigorate those energies, to invigorate the bosom. So when you see those dances, those tribal dances where you may not understand this in Trinidad or Guyana, you see they have like the Ganda square set up where they have the bamboo plants and these things for that energy to represent Sasa.
Very similar to Ganga.
Exactly. Yeah. So when it comes to those things and everything, you see how that energy takes place. So in that reference and standpoint, you see those energies play out within the drummings, within music, within festivals like that in Guyana and Suriname. And to much of the point, people would say like, oh, spiritual Baptist, spiritual Baptist, spiritual Baptist, because heavily still in these countries, these things are still outlawed. It's not like
kind of like the Shango Baptist concept.
Exactly.
Okay. No, incredible for sure. And there was another thing you had mentioned, because you had mentioned you had blood from Ghana as well. When you said you were speaking to the Nanas, right? It's so wild because obviously we have an Orisha named Nana Buruku, and I remember the first time I had heard about that was when I was studying about her, because I was about to make a video about her, and how the word Nana across Africa makes reference to the mothers, right? And when you look at the translation between that culture and Yoruba culture, Nana Buruku technically within the Orisha process is the head female Orisha, where some people would say she's comparable to Yemu, which was Obatala's original wife. And mind you, we're talking about concepts so old, it gets convoluted. Who was first? Who was he with? Who wasn't he with? But when you look at how present as well Ifas in Ghana, you can see how they all intermingled at some point. So to hear that Obeah explained by someone eloquently such as yourself is really... sounds like just another branch of, something that was Afro-descendant. How popular is it still over there in Guyana?
A lot of people will practice it in here and there. Like, you hear people say, like, oh,
they get it in.
Obeah man. But for real people who know how to practice and know how to operate Obeah patu, like a pot of Obeah, know how to operate those things, is real. It's just like scammers with Orisha. If we're having a conversation, I ask you about ananasem, or I say etisen, get them more etisen, and I ask you, how are you? And you don't respond to me, then I'm already looking at you a little different.
You're not in like that.
Right.
Yeah, you know what to ask and you know what you should be hearing.
And even with that correlation, if I ask you about the Momoesha and everything, even to this point with how Osain and everything and how Aroni and how the way that the whistling and the tones and how we talk with Sasa Bonsom, there's little dwarfs or duendes that walk around that work with him that are similar to that energy. And they
like for us would be the Shigidi.
And how they speak and how they whisper and how they go, and that's how you have to talk to them. When you talk to them, you can't just it's gerbils, it's whispers, it's whistles.
They're not really human. They
don't really
speak. Yeah, exactly.
And it's like it's very much whistles and screeches and tones, and people will be looking like, what is he talking about? But then you see the icon rattling, and you're like, hold on, like
we're
wait a minute,
something up. Yeah. Well, they're beyond language. I mean, we're talking about things so ancestral and so fundamental. They were around before anything was conventional, right? I remember the first time after I got sworn into the drum, I had this wild phenomenon happen, and you begin to realize how important the indigenous part of our spiritualities is and how old these things are.
Right.
I remember when the drum was playing during the Oro Seco or whatnot, like I started hearing like these like ooh, like coming out of the walls and stuff like that. I remember I spoke with my godfather Danny. I said, Padrino, none for none. I know I just got sworn in, and you know the new initiate phase, you know, everything's like, but have you ever experienced this phenomenon? And he was like, that's really it. We're when that thing starts bouncing off of the walls, we're invoking energies that were around before language, you know. We're going all the way back to the cavemen. So another interesting counterpoint as well is the obi word, you know. Obi actually is in Orisha. When we talk about the coconut, but even further back, it refers to a nut, right? You have the Obeah bada, which is the four-lobed. You have the Obeah bone, which is the nut of wisdom, which is the coconut. But for that word to be utilized to dignify a priest or a professional of that, it connotates or denotes knowledge. Because why do we interact with the Obi? We interact with the Obi to know, right? So the suffix of the ah just makes reference, you know, to that. It's another, you know, noise
and those
or sound.
traditional like divination forms, like there's divination with rocks, bones, and cowrie shells that mix that one of my spirits use. Sedi abisa. Where it's a mix of things that are fed with your bosom and everything, and they talk and speak through those things. There's water divination. There's divination through streams, and even to the point where you're saying with the coconut, there's divination there. So just to see that similarities and everything, when I started to really stop ignoring my roots and dig more deeper into it, like lean into it, and how Egun accepted that and how Egun showed up in spaces that I didn't think that they would show up in, at Cajons, at Misas and everything, and they'd be like, "Oh, you have this one spirit," and he keeps saying he's not a Congo. He's very detested that he's not a Congo. So it's those energies that really make me love spirituality and love looking at
you
those
know,
little
to
things.
have the, I mean, you look at a cajon and you know the energies that are over there, and then for someone to be coming from a completely different part of Africa spiritually or a completely different continent and still show up, that's gangsta. Like, you know, you look at your ancestors, you're like, yo, I'm the only guy and he's here right now. I mean, ancestral, spiritually, what have you, and yeah, the Congos are here, but we're here. So, I mean, that's something of pride. And at the end of the day, when you talk about tribes and clans and things like that, once they recognized each other and their plight and their pain, they realized we are one. It wasn't until the diaspora happened that, you know, Africa and Afro-descendant people realized, you know, we were bickering back in the homeland not to realize we had one common enemy that we didn't know about until right now when we need each other.
Sure.
So, you know, definitely a moment of pride. You mentioned the Romani people. I think this is very key because, you know, you're a spiritually eclectic guy, and I think now Ifa is entering into a very different phase, a strange phase, but a very good phase, in my opinion, because, you know, me and Poroye, we talk about this all the time. You know, it's not that we don't love the classic archetypes of Cuban espiritismo. Ta Jose, we love them. Ma Francisca, Ta Julian, everybody. But, you know, it gets a little stereotypical. It gets a little generic. And you just, especially with her, the levels of spiritism that she's delved into, she's like, yo, nothing for nothing, but I see muertos that don't look anything like the classics. And it makes sense as we get different demographics of people into the system, we're going to start seeing different things. So, I mean, the Romani people, who are they?
The Romani people, the Roma people, the people who have traveled, that their origin really comes from in the east side of India.
That's
and
wild,
everything.
right?
Yes, and they traveled up through that east coast and everything, up through North Africa, up through the Middle East and everything, up through that ridge, as a traveling people.
They were leaving something at every stage.
Exactly.
Talk about a culture that really dispersed
And everything because they weren't accepted. There's a lot of cultures and traditional values within the Romani people that's lost, a lot of Balkan traditions that are lost that people don't really speak on anymore. And it was in Guyana that during World War II, a coalition was made, a Romani Coalition Association made in British Guyana before Guyana became independent to house these people who were being persecuted during World War II by the Nazis. So you see this influx of over 500,000, over close to almost close to 1 million that were, yes, they were coming through in Guyana, but they were dispersing elsewhere. But that impact and port was in British Guyana. So when these people came through, they left pieces of their culture. They left, especially heavily in Guyana with the East Indian culture, when the East Indian indentured servitudes were
the trading company,
exactly,
like
were there way before, you know, the Roma people. So it's like a clash of memory, and oh, you do this and you do this, and those cultures meshed.
Yeah.
Coming from the Portugal court, I mean the Portugal coast at that time and everything, bringing the wines, the goods, the breads, the sweets, and everything to Guyana, and there was a pact made, and now even till today, there's a small group of Roma people that reside in Guyana. So when people say
That don't look like the classical Esmeralda.
that don't look like no, that look more East Indian,
There
that
we
look
go.
more, in that nature. And people would, and even in Guyana, we have a term, it's Dougla. And Kuli and Dougla.
Oh, man.
People would say it's an insult and everything, but in our culture, it's just like we say nigga. But it's like we joke with each other. We joke with each other. So when it's those things and everything, people from the outside may be, oh, that's a very offensive term and everything, but it's meant to mean someone of mixed lineage.
Yeah.
Like my nana will always tell me, oh, you're a mutt. You're a real mutt. You're a true mutt through and through. You're Dougla. You're a Kuli. Look at your hair, how it turns. It's not super straight. It's not super afro. You're Kuli. So those things and everything is what I hold on from my culture. And when I talk to other people nowadays, now that Ibaye, my grandparents are gone, and I can't really have those in touch conversations about what happened in Guyana. I talk to my auntie that's still there and everything, and here she on the house phone. Those things are funny to me when I go into Misa spaces, when I go into Orisha spaces, and those Muertos and those Orishas pick up on that and tell that to me. Even in Obeah and Okonfa, and then when we enter into the temple, when we enter to the Okonfa fe, and we knock and we say, Ago Kada, and it just made me like light up and everything, because when my nana is showing me this, I'm like,
Ago means excuse me. Yeah,
and
man,
I'm like, this is not the same word that we use in Yoruba.
Exactly.
So it just excites me every time to see those similarities, and even like to bring down the bosom, the drinks that are made with the roots, the peppers, the this, the herbs.
Chamba.
Like,
yeah, it's anthropology in its finest form, and you really get the best examples of it in places like Guyana, which I'm really happy we're doing this as well, because it's a place that I think is a little overlooked. And when you talk about a lot of pain, a lot of change, a lot of transition, a lot of mesh, I think it's a place to be studied. And unless you've interacted with it, you don't understand it. So how has that influenced you spiritually pertaining to you? Because you have spiritualities that kind of derive from that group specifically. How has that process been, getting to know them, accepting them, and entering into that communion with specifically that muerto?
I feel like I tell everybody when they're finding their things, and like we just mentioned on the live that we did, like finding your foundation. I always tell my godchildren, my foundation didn't come as soon as I had my hand to be fire, as soon as I got into a spiritism. Oh, I know my spirits. I know my Gitana. She speaks patois. I know. It wasn't like that. I fought with myself a lot culturally and identity with those things, because I wanted to make sure I was doing things and not falling into what we see online and the mixing, the sancochero and this and that. But I had to come in terms with that when I go to a misa and they tell me, "Queda muerto de sangre." Like, there's muertos of your blood. There's muertos that they want to show you things, but you don't want to listen. And I was very fine. Like, I'm doing my stuff. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. What are we talking about? And you know how in misa their messages are very cryptic.
Yeah, it's fables,
and there was
parables.
a muerta that told me that she dresses in a blue dress, and every time she see me, we finish what we start. She would never change the message. The message would be the same, and I got so pissed off. I'm like, no, bro, is it the Spiritistas? Are they having a meeting up in Oloron? Like, when you see that motherfucker, let him know. We finish what we start. I'm like, what is it? Yeah. And it wasn't until after Rayamento, after doing certain things, and after really coming to terms with those things, I went to a misa. And the muerto came down, and the muerto looked at me and said, this is cute, like the cars and the ride. This is cute, but your muerta, when she wants rocks. She wants bones. She wants shells. She says, you know what you need to write on them, but you keep playing. When people have questions, that's what you ask. I don't want to hear any of this other nonsense. You have a foundation to ask questions. Why are you ignoring it? And I kind of sit back for a second, because this is the first one of the misas that my mother ever attended, and she's just looking like she's just seen this person just look like he was about to fight out his body. Now he's telling these messages, so she's a little skeptic. He turns to her and he says, he used to run around in his underwear with no shoes and everything, and do this and do this, do this, do this, do this, and go sit in his nana lap, and you would be pissed. And my mom started crying. She said, I asked Father God if this was right for you, if this was the path that you needed to take, to show me. She was like, only me and you know what he talking about. She was like, there were certain moments where your nana and everything told me that she had a vision before you even born after I had a miscarriage. And she said, there's a child in a yellow raincoat playing in puddles. He's going to bring you so much more than grief that you had in your life. And my mom didn't understand that because, you know, you think, oh, they're just telling me this. And when I was born, my mom had bought me a yellow raincoat. And who I'm a child of, it's just so funny. Like, all the similarities, it's just like, when you start looking at those things with ancestors, it's like, it has to be something more than this. It has to be something more.
Yeah, they know a little too much, you know, and no matter how spiritual we become, no matter how close to God we get, there is always that doubt because our flesh by nature is doubtful. The body, due to this thing called pain, doubt and fear and adrenaline, we can't help it. But when you have literally someone come into trance and tell you things and, you know, be able to divine things, like, you know, it no matter, and it never gets old.
No,
you do get comfortable with it, but it isn't any less special. Like, people will be like, oh, you're not really like wowed by what's going on. I'm like, I am. I just know I can't expend all that energy every time something great happens here. Greatness happens every day here, you know, within Ifa and within our traditions. It was Western colonization that really took that away from us, the idea that it's okay to speak to God, it's okay to have great things happen that are out of our control. When did you first hear about Ifa and Santeria? I mean, being in Tampa, I would imagine it wasn't too long.
No, I've, as a kid, riding around in my mom's car, riding around in my
Were you born in
grandparents'
Guyana?
car.
Forgive me.
Huh?
Were you born in Guyana?
No, I was not born in Guyana. There have been trips, there have been things and everything, but I was not born in Guyana.
Okay, so you were born in Tampa.
Yeah,
okay,
born
cool.
in Tampa. So as a kid, I've always seen like the little botanica signs and this and that. Always been intrigued and everything. And my mom was not the most open to those things when I was a kid. It was like, oh, you're looking at witchcraft, or you're looking at Obeah. Don't bring the clownery at my house. I want to see it. I want to see it. Like, it was always that. So I'd be like, what? What was this whole thing about? What was the stigma? So when I finally got older and I went to, because my mom was like that, so I didn't even want to ask my grandparents and everything. But then I worked up the courage one day to go to my nana. I was like, no, I want to start doing this and everything for like the ancestors. I want to start.
Was she a spiritual lady?
She was a very spiritual lady. And so when I asked her that, she looked at me and she just, oh, so you're going to be a spiritual doctor now? And I said, wait, what? She was like, no, that's why your mother be so weird. She was like, because when she a little dumb, she a picnic and cleanse she, and she ain't never been the same since. She was like, but she was like, why you think you got this? She said, I call you two for a reason. It's not only because you're the second, it's because you have second sight.
Wow.
So when we were talking earlier on the live, we were talking about reincarnation and things like that. I heavily believe that, like, my grandmother always told me, you come so you can use your gifts this time. The first time you were here, you ignored it. Now they put it plain on your face, so you can't deny it.
Oh.
So those things I always hold deep to my heart.
Yeah, those are things that we can only get confirmations from those that are above us, those that saw us grow. I always tell the story as well. My grandmother, I wasn't born into an Ifa family per se, like, you know, Cuban, Hialeah, all these different things. It's in the house, but it wasn't like people were crowned up and things like that. I remember the first time I told my grandmother I was going to be a Babalao, she was depressed. She was scared because, you know, the Babalaos, we had a reputation, especially, like, there's a big difference between now, modern, wholesome, like, Babalao, green and yellow, to, like, the 1980s, 90s Babalao.
Thugging it, Babalao.
Yeah, no, it's a little different. So when she was like, all right, as long as you're with a good group, she met my godfather and things like that. But if I wouldn't have gotten her confirmation or her blessing to do it, I don't know if it would have happened. Just out of the respect and love I had for her. And then, you know, hearing your grandmother being able to clarify those things and provide that confirmation, I understand. Especially Afro-descendant people, Caribbean people, you know, South America, like, those women matter. Those opinions matter. And, you know, so I get it. So what was the first reading like? What was the first interaction like, you know? What was the Mano Rula like?
First reading, Botanica San Francisco de Assis.
Nice.
Kinkamache, the Madeline and her sons. I love them so much.
Nice.
Give them
Obeah.
blessings.
Yeah.
But that's where I got my first reading. It's not where I ended up staying. And it wasn't because anything wrong. It was just life happens. My grandmother had passed away soon after that and
Oh, rough
everything, and I
patch.
just had to, yeah. But the first reading, Ogunda Mei came through strong,
Oh wow.
and they told me, "Mafer fun Ogun, I need to get a big statue for Ogun to resurrect him, to give him honor, to give him, to thank him for the things he's done in my life." And they said, "You went through a scare, and Ogun saved you." And that's when I already had, like, I've already researched. I've done research more than the average person. I'm not just out here like, oh, a boy, a boy, a boy. Like, no,
Yeah.
I knew what I was getting into. I didn't have any
Educated
questions.
guy, you know, you're a researcher, you're an investigator. Yeah.
So when it came to those things, and he told me, like, Ogun said he saved you already, and you owe him. And I started thinking about it, and I had to get a mokuto for Ogun, and I started thinking about it. This is when I just turned 18. Last year, when I was supposed to be in my senior year, I had a car accident that I was the passenger in.
Oh, Lord.
That tore my stomach from here to here. I still have a scar.
Oh my Lord.
Thanks to Oludumare that I don't have a colonoscopy bag and I don't have to empty a shit every
Yes,
5
sir.
minutes.
Yes, sir.
But my fibula broke in my right ankle.
Jesus.
When the car accident happened, my mom and my sister were in the front seat. They were fine. Nothing wrong with them. I dragged myself out of the car, limping on one leg, opened their doors to make sure that was fine, whatever. It wasn't until I got to the hospital that I said, "Mom, I can't feel my leg."
Yeah, the adrenaline starts dipping out after that, yeah.
The doctors, after I woke up from surgery, they said, "I don't know what you do. I don't know who you walk with." And this was even before I got the reading. I said, "I don't know what you do. I don't know who you walk with." But we would try to put one orange screw in your ankle to hold it together. It bent it. Your bone bent the screw. We had to put a second one in there to hold it together.
The number 2. That's wild.
And so when Ogunda Mei comes to the mat and he says, "Ogun said he already saved you once, and he wants something,"
You filed the
I already
autopsy.
knew.
That's wild.
I already knew. I was like, this is something that I have to follow. This is something, because no one else can tell me that. There's no way. I don't know this man from nowhere. I just stopped into this little shop off of Waters, and I go in for a reading, and you telling me, "Oh, Ogun has something," and I just got clearance to walk back on my feet. So those things, and to my mom, the Rula, I started in this tradition like around 2017, 2018, 2021, I got my mono.
Okay. Right after COVID, kind of. Yeah.
And then it was, like I said, my grandmother passed when I got my first reading. When I went to go get to my mono, my grandfather had just passed.
Oh, wow.
So it's like these things of equal.
I noticed that happens. Like, I've given a gungun to people, and right after some matriarch or patriarch will pass, and their first reaction is like, "Yo," and it's sad, but it's a constant reminder that as we grow closer to God, so do they, and it gets to a point where those transitions start happening, where a deity
You're like, "Oh,
a
you're going into alignment. You don't need me here as much anymore."
Exactly. I'll never forget. My grandmother told me, when I got with my wife, and she said, "I can rest knowing that you're with a good woman." And she passed within the year after that, after me and my wife got together like that. And it's just, the timing's eerie. But you begin to realize it is timing. It's divine timing, and to go through spiritual processes and lose important people like that, I get it, because you see that phenomenon. And it's not negative per se. It is painful, but this is the natural course of life, where as we grow into men and women and adults and things like that, they're able to relax to a point where if it is time, it's God's will. So were you expecting Ochung? Did you know who Ochung was? You know who she is now.
My godmother saw how much I was involved in Spiritism, how much I was in Misa space before I even went to Arula. And she was like, "We're going to ask Yamaya. Yo de Yamaya, mucho espiritual." That's what we're going to ask. Okay. Then Obeah, they hit the mat.
Oh, man, you said the sign, so now we can talk about it.
And then once that hit the mat, they still asked for Yamaya because we had a fight. And they're like, "Okay, no." She said no. Elegua. They promote. Esa elegua. Let's ask. No. Ochun. That's where we get the yes. And I was like, I knew who Oshun was, but like I said, I researched a lot. Yeah. I seen the fanaticism and this and that. I didn't want to be another bandwagon person that I love Ochun. I love the until it was confirmed with Ifa.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted. I didn't want to bandwagon something just to be a part of it, so to make a stake a claim. Yeah. I told myself when I went into that room, whatever the Orisha signify for me, whatever they will it to be, I'm going to follow that path because I chose this. They didn't come looking for me. I came looking for them.
Straight up, yeah. And I'll tell you, the Ochung phenomenon, most children of Ochung didn't think of Ochung or didn't, and I know it's not, we didn't necessarily want to be children of Ochung per se. It's not like the Chango kids, they know who they are
know.
and they want to be, in the red team, you know what I'm saying? But I would say in Obeah, they probably my favorite guardian Orisha there. And, it makes perfect sense with the spiritual aspect of things, even the goats and things like that. Obeah was a goat farmer, so it's really great and interesting parallels. But, you being original and you being somebody of fiber and preparation, like, what have you learned about her more now being crowned with her than what everybody thinks commonly about her? Because, people have this concept, gold bracelets and honey jars and bumblebees, but, I mean, what have you been able to extract from that concept now that you're an initiated priest of her?
With my sisters in Ochun in the audience, I would most likely say, for me, everybody sees Ochun, they think the gold, the luxury, the this, the that, the sweets, the this and that, I'm going to have 1,000 men on my feet begging that I'm the epitome of beauty. That vanity gets a lot of people messed up.
Yeah.
The mirror is not for you to gloat yourself and have these things. It's for self-reflection.
It's to improve.
And the pataki that when I started researching with Ochun that came out of Candomblé with Oshun Para and Oya, Oya looked into Oshun's mirror and said, "Oh, I'm just as pretty as Oshun." Oshun didn't like that. So she played a little trick. She gave her a mirror enchanted with Iku.
Wow.
So when she looked at the mirror, she saw all the eguns and all the death and all the disparity. Drove her mad. Oludumare is like, why? Why would you do that? Is there something right? And for that reason, she always had to carry that mirror to look at herself, to remind herself of what she did to her sister, of what she wouldn't done to herself, of what she would that harm she wouldn't want to inflict on anyone else. So even when researching and looking at these different patakis, it wasn't something that I was just, I'm so infatuated with. I want to know. Everybody speaks of the advantage of this, but the mirror is for self-reflection. And that's the biggest thing Oshun has taught me, even when we were just talking earlier, and Nicole had mentioned it. It's just that self-reflection. If you can't honestly look at yourself and say, am I moving in the right light? Am I doing the right things? Am I doing everything that I need to do? That was Oshun's greatest fault, of overstressing over everything to make sure that she was in this perfect image. But if you look in that mirror, you say, I know I did this. I know I did that. I know I didn't betray them. I know there's nothing to fess or worry yourself or stress or guilt yourself about, to be manipulated about.
Yeah, there's closure, because a mirror can only reflect what you ultimately allow it to, and you have to be careful who's holding that mirror towards you, because depending on how they move it, it could be a different narrative than reality.
Sure.
So that's why it's always best to hold your own and criticize yourself. And the peacock is calm when he's not plucking his own feathers out. You know what I'm saying? So when we get to that point where we're able to have that self-confidence and relaxation and serenity within ourselves, the yellow team is definitely a different experience for sure. So it's like I was just telling you guys, there's times I'll wave at her. Sometimes I don't even talk to her. It's like my guys, Eshu, Batala, Shango, but with her specifically, it's a lot of respect. It's a lot of respect, because you begin to realize if someone is associated with all this happiness and all these amazing things in life, you got to wonder what is the opposite of that. She literally can make life miserable. She literally can take everything away. And as you look at those real patakis, like the ones you just mentioned, or if you go to the Odio Wanimei, where the devil occupied the mirror, or in Ikafung, where, Akaring drove everybody mad, you start to realize there's another dynamic there, that in a toxic space, she's very lethal. So you learn that through experience, through studying and preparing yourself. But it's definitely not the impression that's most popular, As a good son of Ochun you are, you're a defender of people, you're a defender of children.
Yes.
You're involved in social work and things like that. How did that passion arise, and how did you get involved in that?
I I was getting ready to move and make a change in my life, and I've worked a lot of jobs. I worked at bars, I've worked at country clubs, I've worked in offices, I worked in nursing, tech, I've worked in a lot
Your
of
work
positions.
history resembles mine.
Yes.
I was a paycheck and go kind of guy. First check, I'm out, and within 2 weeks, I need a new job.
And it wasn't that like you're trying to be like, but it's like you want to find something with purpose, something that you're going to show up to every
Satisfies you,
day
yeah.
and not dread.
Exactly.
And with working with kids, I can be aggravated with humans, with adults, because you have enough years, enough knowledge. Why are you acting dunce? Why are you acting? Where's the act? Where's the show? With children, we have to teach them. We have to get it. Like so, the aggravation, the tension, it just goes because like, let me help the baby.
They don't know nothing. Yeah.
And when I asked the let go, what was the next step in my life? Because it is a big decision. And I asked, should I stay in management? Should I stay in doing these things in hospitality? Or should I, like, work with kids? And the first job for me wasn't even as a behavior technician. It was as a caretaker in a group home. And that's what led me to be a behavior technician, to seeing the kids that had disabilities, that had this, that had that, being undercared for. When they had their medicines and everything like that, and I'm asking the head, represent the head of the house and everything, like, hey, this one on their sheet, on their program has that they need this medicine at this time, and I'm looking up this medication. This is the medication for anxiety, for bipolar. Where is it? Oh, where their case manager didn't bring it, they're just gonna have to wait until the morning. Are you not gonna call case manager? Are you not gonna call LFS? Are you not gonna call these people so they can get their stuff? No, well, they're closed at this time. There's an emergency line, is there not? So just seeing the lack of care, and even I feel like that radiates from my energy, from because my Obatala Obamoro, and just like that care for those who are underserviced, those who are disabled, who can't really do as much, have that capability. And working in the group home taught me a lot about care, and just that really of listening. No one, like we always say in this country, no child left behind, no child left behind. But in that system, in that care facility, I've seen that it's so many people that get left behind, so many people that don't care and everything. And these kids don't ask for it. They don't. And they just really put my mind to a spiritual sense, like all these people that's in psychosis, all these people that's inside, do these people really ask to be thrown into these things, or are they given this false idea of hope, this false idea of spirituality that they are trying to chase and obtain after that? They lose their essence, they lose themselves along the way. Same with these kids, we tell them they can be doctors, they can be this, they can be that, they can be that, and put them in a society that doesn't give them the support.
I tell you, I mean, everybody comes from a different walk of life, but, when I was growing up and whatnot, the people that were doing well weren't doctors or lawyers. So when you look at that example, you don't realize you could be a real estate professional. You could sell insurance. You could be a social worker. You could be anything you want to be. But unless you're given the resources to be exposed to something different, because not everybody has the luxury of a good visual. There's a lot of kids that walk out their front door and they're seeing things that some adults will never experience. And you being in that line of work, and having the Orisha you have, Crown, makes perfect sense, man, because Ochun was all about children, right? I enjoy interviewing people such as yourself, because I think social media has kind of derailed people from reality a little bit. Like, some people will look at social media and judge somebody off of one interaction, one visual, what have you. But when you look at a personality and an influencer such as yourself, and you look at all the levels of complexity, I mean, look at all the things we've gone over here, Jay. We've gone over a spiritual background that is as eclectic as can be. We're talking about a really genuine Orisha path culminating in priesthood, social work, defending people that can't defend themselves, advocating for people that can't, advocate or ask for the things they need. I mean, for the people that follow you, for the people that just found your channel, for the people that are seeing this interview for the first time, what can you tell them? Like, who is Jay Orisha's baby? Because I like to give people the opportunity to say who they are, rather than people,
Put a name to it.
Put a name to it, or creating a narrative about people that, they really don't know. Because look at all the things we revealed about you here. And we appreciate you, because to be able to open yourself up and give this much space to a medium that's not your own, I mean, it takes courage. So who is Jay Orisha's baby, for all the people that want to know?
Jay is just a little boy from Tampa that grew up knowing that there was something more than just God and the church, from the things that he's seen his elders do. Jay is just someone that likes to play music and cook for people. I'm very Ochun
Birthing
centric, very
goats
big
and,
on.
you know, creating colonies and farms.
I just like doing those things. For people who know me, I like people and I love people. I love giving people that love and that energy and making them feel welcome, making them feel safe. So for everybody that doesn't know me, I'm just the person who just happens to be crowned. You know, I was always a loving person and a giving person. Oshun just gave me more purpose with that.
What is next for you, sir? What's on the projected to-do list and goal list?
The projected goal list is doing more. I have 2026, like I said, doing more events like this, doing more things where we can speak to people and stop the spiritual mediocrity,
Nice.
BS, the this, the that, the lies and everything, and doing more community work. I feel like a lot of people, we get so caught up and they want to be in touch with Orisha, in touch with this and do that, and there's all these red lines and these red flags and these tapes and these videos and things that people make, but we don't give people that example of what they can do, what they should do.
Community.
So I feel like my goal 2026 is to really be about it. Even with this beach cleanup that I have coming up, if you guys
Nice,
want to come
the wife.
out.
No, definitely. We're excited to collaborate and things like that.
So
as parents, anything's a vacation.
Yes.
So we'll be there.
So I was just something that like a lot of people have misconceptions about Yamaya and Mama Francisca, and I felt like that beach cleanup day, and not only Ebo cleaning up the beach,
No, let's clean
but
the beach, yeah.
literally talking about those energies that reside in the marineros, the Yamaya, the Madriagua, talking about those energies and really expounding on those songs, those prayers, and letting people know this is what spirituality is. Yeah. Coming with your God someday and just coming to the beach, cleaning up and doing that simple Ebo, throwing your 7 pennies to the water and saying, "Mafer fun Yamaya," and calling it a day.
Yeah. I mean, how can you worship something when you sully their home? And you litter. I remember we made a video about that so long ago. You look at Orishas like Osaying and Olokung, and they couldn't be any more disappointed in us sometimes. And I remember they did that collective in Cuba one time. There's a very famous beach over there known as La Playa de Chivo. And I mean, I'll never forget, my godfather, we went over there to do some work one time, and he said, "Man, I think that's the same at Bo that I left 10 years ago before I left the island." And he picked it up and he threw it out. He said, "I think it worked." But, they did a huge collective over there and they cleaned it up and things like that. And it was beautiful. So we're definitely excited to be a part of it. And
yes.
Things to come. My brother, any final words for our community?
Always keep growing. Always be true to yourself. Always be authentic to your spirits and your ancestry. And like we always see here, may your roots find the light, right?
Oh, my gosh, man. We appreciate your time for real, brother. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Anytime.
And anybody that wants to get in contact with you, definitely we'll have that in the description. And we know they're in good hands. So congratulations to you and your progress.
Thank you so much.
What you think, Phil?
There we go. Wow. That was a really, really good episode.
Yeah,
I think the audience is really going to like that one.
We had to trap Jay over here. We had to drag him from Tampa, get him away from the farm, and get him away from all of his duties and whatnot, so we can finally interview him. But
literally, I woke up this morning, took care of the animals, made sure I got hay for the animals, went to work, got home, and drove.
You're a ball of productivity,
here,
dog. Yeah, absolutely. So when the wifey said you were coming, I said, "Oh man." Right after the panel, we're gonna get him.
Wow. Well, you asked him about what his baby was, right? Well, I decided to find out the babies of our channel, right? So this the spotlight.
Oh,
this week we got the newbies.
Okay,
the people who have just joined us.
Awesome, new members. We appreciate you.
Yep, and if you guys forgot, we have a membership program.
Get in there.
Yep.
Get in while you can.
All types of perks for you. It's extra episodes, early releases, private shows just for you guys, discounts on merge, you name it. All right, here we go. These are the VIPs that have just joined. So these are the baby VIPs.
Awesome.
All right. Shout out to Princess Azera.
Awesome.
All right. They have been a VIP member for 8 days.
Oh, welcome.
We got Gabby Mez.
Awesome.
They have been a VIP member for 10 days.
Great way to start off the year, for sure.
We got Ayo Abo.
Awesome.
25 days.
Super original with the names.
We got the Magic Nurse.
Love it.
27 days. We got the 4 languages. 28 days.
I wonder what those are.
We got Jose Papo. We got 2 months.
Nice.
Crown Me Queen at 3 months.
Thank you.
Holy GTV at 4 months.
Oru.
And Carl Barnes at 5 months as a total time as VIP. So those are the brand new members for the VIP.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Carl. Guys, couple closing notes before we go ahead and disconnect. Once again, if you want to get in contact with Jay, we're going to have his description information there for you guys to be able to reach out. Well, DonnieGotCandlesandMore.com is up and running for all your service and product needs. We do ship. If you can't catch us here on YouTube, be sure to listen to us on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple, etc. Be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. A big thank you from all of us here at Our Roots Podcast. And until next time, see the light.
Baba Joseph showed the path today. Baba knows the way, we follow the signs. He walks with the Orisha through sacred